I am Lisa.
And I'm Eric. Do you want to improve your English easily? If so, you're in the right place.
Okay, today we'll listen to a podcast about why you can't speak English.
Let's listen to it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Language Journey, the podcast where we explore the ups and downs of language learning. I'm Alex, your host.
And I'm Sophia. Thanks for having me on the show, Alex.
It's great to have you here, Sophia. I know you recently made a video about why people struggle to speak English despite years of study. It got a lot of attention from our listeners.
Yes, I called it Why You Can't Speak English, and I shared my own journey as a non-native speaker.
That's what I loved about it. You weren't just giving tips. You were speaking from experience. Can you tell our listeners a bit about your background?
Sure, I'm originally from Russia, so my native language is Russian. I've been learning English for many years, but I still remember how frustrating it was to study for so long and then freeze up in real conversations.
That's something so many of our listeners can relate to. What do you think is the biggest challenge for English learners, Sophia?
Well, there isn't just one challenge. There are several. In my video, I broke it down into 4 main barriers that stop people from speaking confidently.
Let's go through them one by one. What's the first barrier?
The first big challenge is simply the complexity of English itself. For example, my native Russian is a Slavic language, while English has Latin roots. This creates fundamental differences in how the languages work.
Can you give an example that might help our listeners understand?
Think about vocabulary. Many English words don't have direct translations in other languages. Or consider homophones, words that sound the same but have different meanings like ate and ate. These can be really confusing.
I never thought about that. Even as a native speaker, I take these things for granted.
Exactly. And the grammar can be tricky too. Even native speakers make mistakes with complex grammar rules.
Speaking of mistakes, I've heard native speakers say things like, would have ate instead of would have eaten.
Yes, that's a perfect example. And more safer instead of just safer. It shows that perfect grammar isn't actually necessary for effective communication.
That's a really important point. What's the second barrier you identified?
The second barrier is psychological. Many learners have a fear of judgment. They feel like others are mentally recording all their mistakes.
Oh, I've definitely felt that when trying to speak Spanish. I get so nervous that people will laugh at me.
That's performance anxiety, and it's very common. When we're too self-conscious, it's hard to communicate naturally. And then there's perfectionism. When we focus too much on being correct, we don't practice enough.
How do you suggest people overcome these psychological barriers?
Remember that the goal of language is connection, not perfection. In my professional life, I've worked with non-native English speakers from companies like TikTok, and we focused on understanding each other, not on perfect grammar.
That's such a healthy perspective. What's the third challenge you mentioned in your video?
Pronunciation. English pronunciation often breaks its own rules, which makes it incredibly frustrating.
Can you share some examples?
Sure. Look at the letters EA. They're pronounced differently in bread, steak, and steel. Or think about silent letters in words like island and castle. Why is there an S in island if we don't pronounce it?
I never thought about how confusing that must be. And then there are all the different accents and regional variations too.
Exactly. British English, American English, Australian English. They all have different pronunciations for the same words. It can be overwhelming for learners.
What about your fourth barrier?
The fourth challenge is cultural differences. Language isn't just words and grammar. It's also about understanding cultural references, humor, and social norms.
That's so true. I remember trying to make a joke in Spanish once, and it just didn't translate well at all.
Yes, humor is especially difficult to translate. And many learners worry about accidentally saying something offensive because they don't understand the cultural context.
Did you experience this yourself?
Definitely. But I also found that cultural interest can be a powerful motivator. When I fell in love with Mexican culture, my Spanish improved rapidly because I had a genuine connection to the language.
That's fascinating. So, passion and interest can help overcome these barriers?
Absolutely. When you care about connecting with people and their culture, you focus less on making mistakes and more on communication.
I'm curious, what learning methods do you recommend based on your experience?
Different strategies work for different people. Some learn best through conversation practice, others through reading or listening. The important thing is to find what works for you and not get discouraged by comparing yourself to others.
And how important is it to aim for perfect English?
Not as important as most people think. Remember those native speaker mistakes we talked about? They show that the most important thing is communication. I have met non-native English speakers who communicate more effectively than some natives because they focus on simplicity rather than complexity.
That's so encouraging to hear. What would you say to someone who has been learning English for years but still gets stuck when trying to speak?
I'd say you're not alone. This is a common experience for language learners everywhere. Embrace your mistakes as part of the journey. Each error is actually a sign that you're trying, which is better than staying silent.
I love that perspective. Any final advice for our listeners?
Find reasons to love using English beyond improving your English. Connect with people, explore interests, and watch shows you enjoy. When language becomes a tool for connection, rather than just a skill to master, speaking becomes much more natural.
That's wonderful advice, Sophia. I think our listeners will take comfort in knowing that their difficulties are normal and that perfection is not the goal.
Exactly. And remember, even after years of speaking English, I still make mistakes, but I don't let that stop me from connecting with people like some English learners.
Perfect. And for our listeners who are working on their English, remember that this podcast is designed for English learners at different levels. We try to use clear, natural language that's accessible to everyone.
And don't worry if you didn't understand every word. The important thing is that you're practicing your listening skills right now.
Exactly. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Sophia.
It was my pleasure, Alex. Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for listening to Language Journey. Remember, language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. Keep practicing, stay curious, and be kind to yourself along the way. Until next time, bye-bye.
What do you think about the podcast, Eric?
I liked it. I like the part about pronunciation being so inconsistent. Island having a silent S makes no sense. I also loved her point that perfect grammar isn't necessary. Even native speakers make mistakes.
Definitely. What was your main takeaway, Eric?
The language is about connection, not perfection. I think our listeners should stop being so hard on themselves.
Absolutely. I hope they liked the podcast.
I hope so, Lisa.
All right, let's start our podcast. What are the words today, Eric?
The first word today is rapidly. Then we will continue with challenging and to overcome. Then to aim. And the final one is take something for granted.
Let's start with the first word.
Okay, the first word is rapidly.
Rapidly.
Rapidly means very quickly or very fast. It describes how something happens.
So, instead of just fast, we can use rapidly?
Exactly. For example, the city is growing rapidly.
Okay. It means the city is getting bigger very quickly.
Yes. Here's another one. He learned English rapidly because he studied every day.
Wow. He learned English rapidly. It means he learned fast. That's impressive.
It is. One more. Technology changes rapidly these days.
It means new phones, computers, and things like that appear very quickly. It's hard to keep up sometimes.
You got it. Now, about how we use it. Rapidly is an adverb. It tells us more about the verb, about the action, like how the city is growing rapidly. How did he learn? Rapidly. How does technology change? Rapidly.
So it usually comes after the verb?
Often, yes. Or sometimes at the end of the sentence part, it describes. Just describes the speed of the action.
Perfect. Okay, well, I think now our followers understand the word rapidly better. Now let's move on to our next word.
Our next word is challenging.
Challenging.
Challenging means difficult, but usually in a way that is interesting or makes you want to try harder. It tests your abilities.
So not just difficult, but maybe difficult and interesting?
Yes, that's a good way to think about it. For example, learning a new language can be challenging.
It means it's difficult, it takes effort, but maybe it's also rewarding.
Exactly. Or, this puzzle is quite challenging.
This puzzle is quite challenging. It means the puzzle is hard to solve, but it makes you think.
Right. And one more. She has a challenging job, but she enjoys it.
So her job is difficult and demanding, but she finds it satisfying. I think I understand. My friend started climbing mountains. He says it's very challenging.
That's a perfect example, Lisa. Climbing mountains is definitely challenging. Now, challenging is an adjective. It describes a noun, a thing, a person, a situation.
Like a challenging job, a challenging puzzle, or a challenging task.
Precisely.
No special grammar rules to worry about?
Not really. Just remember, it's an adjective describing something as difficult, but often in an engaging way.
Great. Got it. Shall we move on to the next word?
Let's do that. The next one is a verb, to overcome.
To overcome.
To overcome means to succeed in dealing with a problem, a difficulty, or a negative feeling. You face something hard and you win against it.
So, like solving a problem by putting some effort in?
Exactly. For example, she had to overcome many problems to start her own business. It means she faced many difficulties, and she needs to solve them.
But she managed to succeed in the end.
Exactly. Here's another common one. He is trying to overcome his fear of public speaking.
It means he is working hard to stop being afraid of speaking in front of people.
Correct. And one more. They worked together to overcome the challenges.
So they faced difficulties, but by cooperating, they managed to solve them.
You've got it. Now, for the grammar. Overcome is a verb. We usually use it with an object. You overcome something not to do something.
Like overcome obstacles, overcome fear, overcome challenges.
Perfect. You overcome the problem or difficulty. It's just the base form of the verb. For example, yesterday she overcame her shyness and gave a presentation.
Overcame. Good to know. So, overcome plus the thing you are fighting against.
Exactly. It's about success against difficulty.
Okay, well, we've explained the word to overcome pretty well. Now, let's move on to our next word.
Sounds good. Our next verb is to aim.
To aim.
To aim means to plan, hope, or intend to achieve something. It's about having a goal or a target.
So, it's like setting a goal for yourself?
Yes, that's a great way to put it. For example, we aim to finish the report by tomorrow morning. This means our plan or goal is to complete the report before tomorrow morning.
Or, she is aiming for a promotion at work. It means her goal is to get a better job position in her company.
Right. And one more. The charity aims to help homeless people.
It means their main purpose or goal is to provide assistance to people without homes.
You understand it perfectly. Now, let's talk about how we use it. Aim is a verb. Very often, we use it with to, followed by the base form of another verb.
Like in your first example, aim to finish?
Exactly. Aim to do something. Aim to achieve something. Aim to learn something.
Okay, aim plus to plus verb.
We can also use aim with the preposition for, usually followed by a noun.
Like in my example, aiming for a promotion?
Yes. Aim for a goal. Aim for success. Aim for a specific result. So you can aim to do something or aim for something.
Aim to finish. Aim for promotion. Got it. That seems useful for talking about plans and goals. Okay, well, I think now our followers understand the word to aim better. Now, let's move on to our final word.
Our final word is to take something for granted.
Take something for granted. That sounds like a longer one.
It is an idiom, a common word. To take something for granted means you don't realize or appreciate how important or valuable something is. Maybe because you are so used to having it.
Oh, so you have something good, but you don't really notice it or say thank you for it?
Exactly. For example, we often take clean running water for granted in our homes. It means we have it easily, so we don't always think about how lucky we are or how important it is, unlike people in places where clean water is hard to get.
That's a perfect explanation, Eric. Another example. Don't take your friends for granted. Always show them you appreciate them. It means you should value your friends and not just think they will always be there without showing you care.
Well said. It can also mean you think something is true without checking. For example, he took it for granted that the train would be on time, but it was late.
It means he just thinks or expects it to be on time without question.
Right. So the main idea is not appreciating something enough or thinking something without checking. The structure is take plus the object, the thing or person, plus for granted.
So take something for granted. Like take health for granted, take family for granted, take electricity for granted.
Exactly. For example, she realized she had taken her health for granted after she got sick.
That makes sense. It's a very useful word for everyday life. Take something for granted. Don't appreciate it enough.
You've got it, Lisa.
Wow, that was 5 great words and words today. Rapidly, challenging, to overcome, to aim, and to take something for granted.
That's right. We hope you found this helpful. Practice using them this week.
Yes, try to make your own sentences. Thanks for listening to Simply Explained English.
Join us next time for more English learning. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. I am Lisa.
And I'm Eric. Do you want to improve your English easily? If so, you're in the right place.
Okay, today we'll listen to a podcast about learning English without a teacher.
Let's listen to it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Sarah.
Today we're talking about something that might surprise you: learning English without a teacher.
That's right. Many people think you need expensive classes and fancy books to learn English. But is that really true?
I don't think so, Alex. I learned French mostly on my own, and I'd like to share that experience with our listeners.
I'm sure many of our listeners are curious about how to learn English effectively.
Well, I studied French in school for 8 years. I did all the homework and even extra grammar exercises on weekends.
Wow, you were really dedicated.
Yes, but here's the shocking part. When I moved to France, I could barely order a coffee. And the French word for coffee is café, almost the same as in English.
That must have been frustrating after all that study time.
It was. I spent so much time and money learning French, but I couldn't actually use it in real life.
So, what was the problem?
I was treating language learning as a passive activity. I went to class and did homework, but I didn't make it part of my daily life.
I think many of our listeners might be in the same situation with English. They take classes and watch videos, but when it's time to speak, they feel stuck.
Exactly. And then they wonder why learning English is so difficult.
So, are you saying teachers aren't helpful?
No, not at all. Teachers can be very helpful. I am a teacher myself, but many learners put all the responsibility on the teacher.
I see what you mean. People expect the class or textbook to magically make them fluent.
Right. But fluency doesn't come from a teacher. It comes from you. Language learning needs to become part of your daily life, not just something you do once or twice a week.
So, how can our listeners make this shift?
First, find your real reason for studying English. If you're learning just because you think you should, you'll probably never become fluent.
That makes sense. We don't spend time on hobbies we don't enjoy, right?
Exactly. Language learning is the same. It has to matter to you personally.
Can you share how you improved your French?
Sure. Everything changed when I got a job with a refugee agency. Many of my clients came from French-speaking Africa. Suddenly, French wasn't just a hobby. It was a tool I needed to connect with people.
So, your motivation became helping others?
Yes. I wanted to make people feel comfortable and build trust. That's hard to do if you expect others to adapt to your language.
And that gave your learning purpose and motivation.
Exactly. I didn't become fluent overnight, but it started me on the journey to mastering French.
That's a great story. So, what would you say to our listeners about finding their motivation?
I'd ask them to think about why they're learning English. Is it for work at an international company, to travel, make friends, or watch movies without subtitles?
And once they know their reason, should they keep it in mind?
Yes. When you read an article or listen to a podcast in English, remember why you're doing it. That will help you show up every day and do the work.
And then you'll start taking more responsibility for your learning instead of relying only on teachers.
Right? A good teacher can give structure and support, but they shouldn't be your only source of English.
That's an important point. No single teacher can represent all the different types of English around the world.
Exactly. And today, we have so many free resources. Podcasts like this one, YouTube channels, audiobooks, TV shows, apps, and online language partners.
So, once you find your motivation, you should surround yourself with as much English as possible.
Yes. The more you do this, the faster you'll improve.
I'd like to ask about specific strategies. What daily habits would you recommend to our listeners?
Great question. I suggest starting small. Maybe begin with 15 minutes of English content every day. A short YouTube video, a few pages of a simple book, or even this podcast.
That sounds manageable. What about speaking practice?
Speaking is crucial. You can talk to yourself in English while doing chores, record yourself speaking, or find language exchange partners online. There are many free apps where you can connect with English speakers who want to learn your language.
I've heard some people keep an English journal. Is that helpful?
Absolutely. Writing a few sentences every day about your life or thoughts is excellent practice. Don't worry about making mistakes. Just write.
What about common obstacles? Many listeners probably feel shy or afraid of making mistakes.
That's normal and happens to everyone. Remember that making mistakes is how we learn. Native speakers usually appreciate when someone tries to speak their language, even with errors.
And what about those days when motivation is low?
We all have those days. That's why having a strong personal reason for learning is so important. On tough days, remind yourself why you started. Also, make learning fun, watch shows you enjoy, or read about topics you're passionate about.
I think consistency is key.
Definitely. 10 minutes every day is much better than 3 hours once a week. Your brain needs regular exposure to build those language connections.
What about setting goals? Should listeners have specific targets?
Yes, but make them realistic and measurable. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent, try, I want to understand my favorite TV show without subtitles. Or, I want to have a 5-minute conversation with a native speaker.
That makes sense. Small victories keep you motivated.
Exactly. And celebrate those victories. Did you understand a joke in English? Did you have a short conversation with a tourist? Be proud of yourself.
Any final advice for our listeners, Sarah?
Remember that a teacher is just one tool in your language learning toolbox. If you're serious about improving your English, don't wait for someone else to guide you step by step.
Instead, build habits and make English part of your daily routine.
And be consistent. That's the key to success.
Great advice, Sarah. Thank you for sharing your experience with us today.
My pleasure, Alex, and thank you all for listening.
We'll be back next week with another interesting topic. Until then, keep practicing your English.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
What did you think about that podcast, Eric?
I liked it. Sarah's point about finding your real motivation was spot on.
Yes, our followers should make English a part of their daily lives.
Absolutely. I hope they liked the podcast.
I hope so, Eric. Okay, let's start with today's word. What are today's words, Eric?
The first word today is obstacle. Then we will continue with to be dedicated and to adapt. Then barely. And the final one is to recommend.
Okay, let's start with the first word.
The first word is obstacle.
Obstacle.
An obstacle is something that makes it difficult for you to go somewhere or to achieve something. It's like a block in your way.
Ah, so like a problem or a difficulty that stops you.
Yes, Lisa. For example, if you want to learn guitar, maybe finding time to practice is an obstacle.
That makes sense. So I could say, lack of money was a big obstacle to starting my own business.
Perfect example, Lisa. Or he overcame many obstacles to become a successful athlete. You might also hear it used for physical things like There was a big rock in the road, a real obstacle for the cars.
So it can be a real thing you can see or a problem like time or money.
Yes, it's a noun. We often use verbs like face, overcome, or remove with obstacle, like we faced an unexpected obstacle, or she managed to overcome every obstacle.
Do we need a special preposition after it?
Often you'll hear obstacle to something, like in your example, an obstacle to starting my business, or the main obstacle to progress is lack of funding.
Okay, obstacle to something or obstacle to doing something. Is it formal or informal, Eric?
Obstacle is quite neutral. You can use it in everyday conversation, but also in writing or more formal situations. It's a common word.
Got it. Okay, well, we've explained the word obstacle pretty well. Now, let's move on to our next word.
Let's do that. The next word is to be dedicated.
To be dedicated.
When you are dedicated, you give a lot of your time and energy to something because you think it is very important. It means you are committed and focused.
Like being really serious about something?
Yes, exactly. For example, she is dedicated to her job. She works very hard. Or he is a dedicated father who spends a lot of time with his children.
So it shows strong commitment. Could I say, our teacher is very dedicated. She always helps us after class.
That's a great example. It shows the teacher cares and puts in extra effort. We often use dedicated with the preposition to. So you are dedicated to something or to someone.
Dedicated to. Like dedicated to my studies or dedicated to helping others?
Perfect. Now, if a verb follows to, it usually takes the ing form. For example, he is dedicated to improving his English, or they are dedicated to protecting the environment.
Ah, so dedicated to doing something. Good to know. How about formality?
To be dedicated is generally positive and can be used in many situations. It sounds quite good in both spoken and written English, maybe slightly more common when you are admiring someone's effort.
Okay, so dedicated to something, or dedicated to doing something. It means being very committed.
That's the idea.
Okay, well, I think now our followers understand the phrase to be dedicated better. Now, let's move on to our next word.
Sounds good. The next word is to adapt.
To adapt.
To adapt means to change your behavior or ideas to fit a new situation. It's about being flexible and changing when things around you change.
Oh, like when you move to a new country, you need to change how you do things?
Exactly. That's a perfect example. You could say, it took me a few months to adapt to the new culture. Or, animals need to adapt to changes in their environment to live.
So, it's about making some changes. Could I say, our company had to adapt its strategy when the market changed?
Yes, that fits perfectly. Businesses often need to adapt. We often use adapt with the preposition to. You adapt to a new situation, a new place, a new challenge. But if a verb is used with adapt, we should use ing form. For instance, we had to adapt to working from home.
Okay, so adapt to a situation or adapt to doing something. Is it formal or informal, Eric?
To adapt is quite neutral. It's used commonly in everyday conversation, in business, science, and writing. It's a very useful verb.
I see. So, to adapt means changing to fit new conditions.
You've got it, Lisa.
Shall we move on to the next word?
Let's do that. The next word is barely.
Barely.
Barely means only just or almost not. It suggests a very small amount or that something almost didn't happen.
So, if I say, I barely slept last night, it means I slept very little.
Yes, very little sleep. Or He was so tired he could barely keep his eyes open. It means it was very difficult for him to keep his eyes open.
Okay, so it emphasizes how small something is, or how difficult it was. How about, there was barely enough food for everyone?
Perfect. That means there was just enough food, maybe not quite enough. It's often used before a verb, like, I barely know him, meaning I almost don't know him, or she barely passed the exam, meaning she passed but with a very low score, almost failing.
Got it. Any grammar points here? Does it need a preposition?
No, barely is an adverb. It doesn't need a preposition.
Okay, no prepositions. And formality?
Barely is very common in spoken English and is also used in informal and neutral writing. It's quite standard. You'll hear it a lot.
So, barely means almost not or only just. Like, we barely caught the train.
Exactly. You almost missed it.
Okay, well, I think now our followers understand the word barely better. Now let's move on to our final phrase for today.
All right. Our last one is to recommend.
To recommend.
To recommend means to suggest that someone or something is good or suitable for a particular purpose or job. You tell someone that you think something is a good idea.
Like when a friend tells you about a great restaurant?
Precisely. Your friend recommends the restaurant. You could say, can you recommend a good hotel near the airport? Or, my doctor recommended getting more exercise.
So, you suggest something because you think it's good. Can I say, I highly recommend this book. It's fantastic.
Yes, highly recommend is a very common way to give a strong recommendation. Good example. Now, thinking about grammar, you can recommend a noun, like a book, a film, a person. For example, I recommend this cafe.
Recommend plus a noun. Easy.
You can also recommend that someone do something. Notice that we use the base form of the verb here, even in the third person. I recommend that he see a doctor, not sees. Or, she recommended that we try the pasta. Not tries or tried.
That's interesting. Recommend that someone do something. Like, they recommend that she apply for the job.
Exactly. Another common structure is recommending doing something using the ing form. I recommend visiting the museum. Or, he recommended taking a taxi.
So, recommend doing something. Like, we recommend booking your tickets early.
Perfect. So, 3 main ways. Recommend something, noun, recommend that someone do something, base verb, or recommend doing something, ing form.
And how about formality, Eric?
To recommend is very useful and quite neutral. You can use it informally with friends. I recommend this movie. Or in more formal contexts, like writing a letter of recommendation or giving advice professionally.
Great. So, to recommend is to suggest something is good or suitable.
You've absolutely got it, Lisa. And that's our last word for today.
We covered obstacle, to be dedicated, to adapt, barely, and to recommend. Lots of useful language.
We hope that was helpful for all our listeners. Practice using them this week.
Yes. Join us next time for more words.
Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.